my first book, in which I hope planned to be a series of books based upon the trials and tribulations of a family in southwest Oklahoma, Native American family, Comanche and Kiowa, who have the same problems and issues and joys and concerns that everyone else in these United States have. And we focus on one particular concern that they are caught up in, and that's terrorism on their own backyard, on their buffalo ranch in southwest Oklahoma, right along the Red River. And the primary character, Jim, Bear Kota, as he's called, has recently retired and trying to recover from PTSD after tours, multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, like so many of our veterans today. And he's carrying a lot of baggage with it, which forces his retirement after more than 20 years serving the country. And while he's trying to recover at his home away from home in a little place that we happened to live in years ago called Northwood Lake, west of Oklahoma City. One of the members of the family, and who's trying to deal with issues with a very difficult family problem, comes up to see Bear Kota, his cousin, try to get him to come back, and Bear refuses to do that. Unfortunately, they get news while they're discussing that issue that another family member has just been found dead. That brings Bear Kota back into the picture, brings him back to an old girlfriend, to all of his family, aunts, uncles, his grandfather, who is one of the prime characters that helped raise him when he lost his real father. He deals with the family nemesis in a very direct and forthright manner and thinks that that has cured the problem. And it will be smooth sailing for the family from there in, but that's only the beginning of the story. Behind their backs, this family nemesis, Ramiro Jenkins, has developed a factory manufacturing munitions that will be used in an attack on a very major port, the Houston port, which is several hundred miles south of them in Texas. So the story leads from the ranch in Oklahoma down to the Galveston Bay area. The story also takes us to the coast of Nicaragua in the Gulf of Mexico, where munitions are being tested and the boats have been tested that will be involved in the attack. What happens from there, I'll leave to the imagination of the public until they get a chance to read Crossing the Red. Crossing the Red is the title that goes back to an old Comanche saying, when they've had enough, absolutely all they can take of reservation life of being contained at the Fort Sill Reservation, they cross the Red and go raiding into Texas and the Llano Estacado, the high plains of Texas. On this occasion, they've reached their psychological crossing the Red and physically have to cross the Red to deal effectively with the problem. So I think it's an intriguing story. It has a lot of surprise twists and turns. It has a horrific ending. I won't say anything more about that. But the sequel to it is on the boards and will be finished and out in just a couple of months, by the end of the summer at the latest planning. And there's a series of novels planned about Jim Kota and his family. I was inspired by authors as a youth like Jack London, Herman Melville. I always loved the outdoors, man's challenge against the outdoors, man's physical challenges with each other, and the psychological difficulties of adjusting to the traumas of life, whether it's you're battling with yourself or you're battling with others or Mother Nature. Some of all that's wrapped up in my writing. From a young boy, I read my way through the public library, and from that point on, it was really a matter of studying literature in school. I started studying writing, the technique of writing, when I was 18, and I decided I wanted to be a writer. Unfortunately, life got in the way, and I got married just before we graduated from college, Adams State University in Alamosa, Colorado, and proceeded with a series of newspaper jobs, which is as close as I could get to writing and make a living short of writing and publishing novels. Nearly 20 years in the newspaper business in Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, and then got into government defense contracting. I spent nearly or over 29 years in that. As a matter of fact, I still do that on a part-time basis as a consultant. I also do some very interesting work for a major discount retailer, and I just started doing that on a part-time basis, and it's very interesting. You meet a lot of people, a lot of very interesting people, and I seem to gravitate toward the veterans, although I've never spent a day in the military. My work has taken into me continuous contact with the military, all of the services, since I've been involved in defense contracting. So there are some interesting reviews from the first book, a lot of them from military who seem to really enjoy the themes and the issues and the problems. So we'll continue with that and see where that takes us. The book actually started, I had the inspiration for it in 1987 when I was working at NASA as the supervisor of information services, which is the contracting arm of public relations and public affairs. And the inspiration came from one of the security people that I visited with every now and then at the coffee shop. One day I asked him, "How many of you are there?" And he said, "Well, there's a couple of us." I thought, for this whole big campus and all these people who drive over here and park? He said, "Well, that's right, but if we have any problems, you know, the local law enforcement's on call." Well, at that period in our history, there was a real rash of terrorist activities worldwide, as well as hijackings and so forth in the United States and the Latin American area. And so that got me to thinking about what if, and I took it from there. Unfortunately, a real world tragedy, several of them happened in the intervening years. First of all, the Challenger disaster, in which we lost some very good people, and several of them I had known at NASA while I was there, because they'd come into our office looking for information to send to friends and family, which is what we were all about. So I revised my plot, and I took NASA out of the crosshairs of the terrorists that I had created. There was another big target that came into the plot, and that's the huge petrochemical complex in the Galveston Bay area. And that's more than adequate concern to occupy our minds in these days. And so after living and working with these people, I just could not write a novel wrapped around them. So anyway, I think it worked out well, and it's still very intriguing. And of course, it's topical with concerns worldwide about terrorism, and particularly here at home, and how people would deal with it if confronted. The book is available right here in the Montana Book Company store. It's available online at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and a variety of others, including the publisher, Ex Libris.